The most powerful Porsche Cayenne is now this new Porsche Cayenne Turbo S eHybrid. So yes, they put this 680 horsepower machine on a PHEV version. Let's find out if it's also the most interesting one. Exterior, interior and the performance driving experience here on Autogefuehl with Thomas in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! In the front you can see this typical round Porsche design that really reminds us of the 911. Headlamps come with LED standard in this generation of the Cayenne, optional the matrix LED and this 4-dot design, very beautiful. The Turbo S comes with some stronger lower air intakes right there, and the color for today is called chalk. So, you know, like the chalk you would, the teachers used in school, or used at school, so to say. So very interesting color, and I think it looks so sexy, especially here with the coupe version we have today. A Porsche Cayenne is always around 4.90 m, 16'1", 194 inches. Depends on the special version, also about the overhangs and the spoilers. This one here, as you've probably already seen, is the coupe version, recently came out. There's also a special comparison, SUV and coupe with the coupe Focus. We recently launched that one here in our review. We'll also link that one if you're interested in that. Special about the coupe is that the roofline here is a little bit flatter, and already the A-pillar is just a couple of centimeters flatter, so it gives this sportier look, and here also with a fixed ring. Then wheels, they come with 21-inch standard with the Turbo S eHybrid here. Those ones are the optional 22-inch wheels, pretty massive. And normally you get a normal brake, then there is this tungsten carbide special coated brake, optional, and then the third option, which again is standard now for the Turbo S. Here, those carbon ceramic brakes, and you can also pick different colors here for the brake calipers, and I can tell you, well, they brake astonishingly well. The question is if you really need them for the road driving, probably not, but they have, they are very aggressive. I will tell you more about that later in the driving part. Other than that, this round sports car shape alike, it is a put-up sports car. That's what has made the Cayenne famous, so to say, and again, I think it works very well in this vehicle color. Then it has also this design package with the bigger wheels, also a carbon fiber roof, and this sports design package will be continued on the interior, also a very interesting choice. The rear is very interesting, especially with the coupe, of course, with this flatter window right there. Then there is this lip, and they moved the number plate to the lower area of the vehicle. But again, as I said, the Turbo S eHybrid will also be available with the normal SUV version, and both are more aggressive in the lower end. We have a diffuser right there. Then there is this performance exhaust. The normal Turbo S exhaust looks different over this, the option performance exhaust for even more sound. Visually, we've also had that in the other episode with the Cayenne Coupe. Visually, I found the normal exhaust a little bit more beautiful than those ones, but here you probably also heard that on camera. The sound is really astonishing. What else is interesting technology-wise? Yeah, the pricing, of course, for this one is basically ridiculous. So when you can get a base Cayenne for about 75k or so, you at least have to pay double the price here. It will be even more. but then at least you have something already included, like the anti-tilt control that you don't need so much in the corners, so it's working basically against it here at each wheel. That's very interesting technology, it works very well. Adaptive air suspension is included here with a stiffer setup then, and you can also get the rear differential lock. This is also included here for the Turbo S. Last but not least, there's also the rear axle steering available. Turns to about 3 degrees and it reduces the turning circle. So when the rear axle is steering with, and the threshold is about 80 kilometers an hour. So up to 80 kilometers an hour, it's steering in the opposite direction, and over 80 kilometers an hour speed, steering in the same direction as the front wheels. You can also activate the rear wing, this adaptive one. The secondary one from the inside is very interesting, and at higher speeds it automatically folds out and it will even fold up higher. I cannot do it here stationary, so when you're driving really fast there is a second level for this rear wing. So what about engines? You know, there's no naturally aspirated engine for the Cayenne anymore. That was just in the previous generation. Now we get the base engine, a 3-liter V6 turbo petrol engine. There are no diesels anymore, they skipped that. Then for the Cayenne S, there's a 2.9-liter V6 with a little bit more horsepower. Then there is a 3-liter V6 PHEV. We've tested that one earlier. We'll link also this episode. That's a very interesting ride, and it's the same technology here with the 14 kWh battery for this Turbo S eHybrid. But the normal turbo, by the way, with a 4-liter V8 petrol engine, that one 550 horsepower, 3.9 seconds is the acceleration figure. And this one here, also the 4-liter V8, but then plus electric drive, and then gives a system output of about 680 horsepower, and 3.8 is the acceleration figure. So about 300 kilograms more this whole car has in weight. Then half of that goes to the battery weight, so that's definitely increased weight. How will it play out for handling? We'll soon find out, but still a little bit faster than the normal turbo. Yeah, I think, you know, they have to do that, otherwise no one would probably buy it. But it's a very interesting approach. At first you can think, does it really make sense? We will find out more in the driving part that is to come very soon. And by the way, of course, the all-wheel drive is standard for all Cayenne versions, and as we know from Porsche, always with a rear wheel bias. This one is still a true all-wheel drive. The battery capacity is at 14 kilowatt hours, and the maximum AC charging, what we're doing at the moment here with the wallbox, is 7.2 kilowatts. So that will take about 2 hours to recharge completely from 0 to 100. And again, of course, when you recharge at home, because for a plug-in hybrid vehicle you might just use a normal household plug, and of course it takes way longer. But then again, it's not a problem when you, for example, just leave it overnight or so. It will also be full with a normal household plug. This is the car key, light and slim, and doors here, they also have, that's an option, soft close. Here we go. And the inside of the doors, some carbon fiber inserts here in a sporty style, and reasonable space at the inside of the doors, that's cool. Then there's a Cayenne Turbo S entry badge here, the lower part of the door. And here we also have the sports design package, which is also consisting of those special fabric seats. Finally, a non-animal solution, at least for the inside of the seats. There are still animal parts at the outside, but this is pretty cool also because it stays cooler in summer and also warmer in winter, so that's definitely way to go. Then you also have the Alcantara steering wheel. That's pretty cool choice too. We have a good grip always, and somehow cozy also, both again in summer and winter times. And with this design package you get the carbon fiber roof, which is then of course a closed one. You can optionally also get the glass roof for the Cayenne Coupe. Here then the carbon fiber roof on the inside with Alcantara, special sporty setup here. And again, when you want to go for the SUV, you also have some different choices. In the front, however, the seating is pretty much the same. It's just that on those seats here, because the fabric is softer than the animal skin surface, you have more comfort on those seats here. That's very interesting. There's also this comfort feature that as soon as I close the door, I can do it for a second, then the seat is moving forward. And when I open the door and turn off the ignition, the seat moves backward again and the steering wheel moves up, so I can easier get in and out. Well, in the coupe here, it's no problem, especially if you don't have the panoramic roof. 1m86 or 6'1" my height, so no problem in the front. Yeah, and the rear it plays out a little bit differently, but that's very interesting. I'll soon show you. But here in the front, you have enough space, of course. This platform here that is shared by the Audi Q7, Q8, also the Volkswagen Touareg offers ample of space in the front. Whereas the Cayenne, of course, with his sporty cockpit layout, narrows it a little bit, but still you will have enough room. So very comfortable, especially here with the setup we have today. With all electric controls you could possibly imagine. Also, for example, make the front area longer and so on. So pretty cool to sit in here. Interior overview, we know it basically from Cayenne with this horizontal stress and everything. The Porsche looks wrapped tightly. Then the sports chrono package here included in this version, of course, with the acid green arrow. So it's a very interesting hybrid design element, the same as for the V6. Big middle console, then those panic handles right there. And the temperature goes still manually, with nice clicking sound and metal knurling. Still a lot to control right here. I just always wonder that the hotkey for the GPS is placed right there, where it should be right there actually, because, you know, maybe the co-driver does something with the infotainment system. Oh, I want to check the GPS. Then again, you also can put it right here in the instruments. Sumo deals to the instruments overall, but you know, it's always good to be able to put the GPS on that side too. So that's maybe the reason they put the hotkey right there. I don't know. This one here is a 12.3-inch HD screen. Sumo deals to that. Pretty good visualization. But is it sometimes a little bit overkill? We'll find out about that very soon. Classic automatic gearbox. Then this steering wheel here with the Alcantara. Very great grip. So sport, you feel like driving a Porsche sports car, although you're in this high SUV right there. And soon also more deals to all these instrument clusters right there. Overall pretty impressive cockpit still, and actually quite clean to look at also. As for the instruments, they keep the big analog meter right in the middle, then with those acid green accentuations as for the arrow. And right and left are 7-inch screens, so you can control them, for example, here on the left side for some information on the assistance systems, for example. 35.5 degrees in the shadows in Germany. That's pretty rare. And then on the right side, you can have, for example, the big GPS view. It will automatically pop up if you have set a destination and you approach the next intersection. Or you can also have a G-force meter and so on, and can play around with that a little bit. It's pretty easy to change the driving modes while driving. The pure electric mode, hybrid auto mode, sports and sports plus. In those two here, the combustion engines will always run. And then pressing it will give you a short sport response boost. Head-up display is an option where then everything is projected as it would be 2.3 meters away from you. It is nice that you can keep your sight right there and not have to look down in the instruments, but I think it's not that clear as we would have experienced with the BMW or Audi or Mercedes head-up displays recently. My favorite are the ones from BMW at the moment. Second favorite, the one from Audi. Here I think they have to work a little bit that it is totally crisp and sharp from every angle. So the screen, again, a nice map right there. Also works quite fast when it's loaded. At the initial startup, this system often takes a lot of time to load. And meanwhile, I get along with it a little bit better. This is, the car menu where you can, for example, put out the spoiler if you like. You also have this orange visualization right there. Or you can activate the exhaust mode. Here you can also see when you use the knob at the steering wheel, or you can also press it, different driving modes. But there are even more, but they're hidden quite somewhere else. I can show that to you. So let's see a hybrid. And then you can also go to eHold or eCharge. So then the battery is being charged while driving. That is of course not efficient because it just makes more resistance in the whole driving process. Same goes for the eHold, that the status is being held. It only makes sense, for example, that you can only enter a certain area fully electric or something. That's why they put the auto in here. Other than that, you just leave it in the hybrid auto mode or just use the regenerative braking when you hit the brakes and so on. And here you can also have the eFlow and then see the battery is placed right there. See how that goes while driving, so on. And then you can also pre-time, for example, everything as for charging, also as for the pre-climatization. Here with the timer right there, that you, for example, can pre-heat or pre-cool the car. This is always something with the plug-in hybrid vehicles. You can also use them for that. Last but not least, you have this app view right there. I'm not sure if I would use that quite often. And first time in the Porsche here, finally available, the wireless CarPlay. You can see it right there. They do not support Android Auto yet. And the CarPlay works both, either with cable or, as you can see here, wirelessly via Bluetooth. And in the lower area, you have adaptive cup holders. 12 power supply with a metal knurling around, pretty nice. You can also slide it forward right there. There's the middle armrest and it's very well attached. And then you have an inductive charging platform right here. Or you can use the cable. They now set all on USB-C, so 2 USB-C slots. So still for the iPhone at the moment you need the adapter right there or a different cable. I think you at least have a lot of choices now to connect the phones and to recharge them. Lovely shifting pedals here, by the way. They just give a very short feedback, but it's really good. It feels nice and, well, you can have a lot of fun controlling those. But since this vehicle here responds so well to the gas, you hardly ever have the urge to shift down yourself. The car just does everything with power itself. The rear passenger compartment is very interesting because with the Coupe, it's a little bit different. I'll soon show that to you. First of all, take a look at that one here. Also the nice fabric seats with this retro style for the rear. Then you can get this single seat setup, or alternatively you can get a bench that goes all the way through, as you know from the normal Cayenne SUV. So that's definitely up to you. Which one do you pick? One big difference is that this bench cannot be slid forward or backward here with the Coupe. With the SUV you can slide forward or backward about 16 centimeters. Again, not possible here because it would then, maybe get confusing with the headroom at the end of the day. So you have this flatter roofline, yes. And you can also adjust the angle of the seat right there. That's pretty cool. And ultimately you can also flip them completely with this lever. Yeah, it does work headroom-wise here. There's still even some space above my head. Why? Because here in the Coupe version you sit lower. So you lose a couple of centimeters with the roof, but then you gain a little couple of centimeters because you sit a little bit lower. However, we've tested it directly head-to-head. The SUV Cayenne is a little bit more comfortable in the rear because you sit higher, there's a different angle then for your legs, and you also don't lean backward that much. And you also feel you're a little bit lost in here because, like sitting so very low in here. It's still decently comfortable and also very sporty here with a sport seat setup. But again, if you want the most comfort, go for the Cayenne SUV. However, I think it's still a good compromise they found here. You can get a 4-zone AC, which then also covers this whole rear part. You can see here also with this metal knurling, also seat heating available. And below that you have 2 USB-C devices right there. And then you have this, storage space at the middle of the seat if you go for this single seat setup. And then you can flip this middle part here for an armrest with non-adaptive cup holders. And last but not least, you can also flip this complete part as a ski hatch. As for the trunk, you open it right here or also with the key. And then first of all, with the Coupe, you lose of course some height right there if you compare it to the SUV. Let's take some measurements right there, because the length of the trunk is about 1 meter and it's about 1 meter, a little bit more in width. And the height right here at the lowest part is just about 35 centimeters. Then below this cover is almost 50 centimeters, a little bit less than 50 centimeters. So that's of course still okay. And then when you have the hybrid, both the V6 and here the V8 hybrid, one thing is that you lose some more height right there. It would be a small step otherwise. But here then there's the Bose sound system, and behind that, what we cannot see, but there they put the battery. So well, the advantage is that you have an even loading cell, so you can also take that one as an advantage if you like. And flipping the seats is not possible from the trunk. You have to do it manually, have to go around. It's like this, 1/3. Or use the ski hatch, that's also possible if they're showing you. Or here then the 2/3. Here we go. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the new top of the trim or top of the line Cayenne, the PHEV with the V8 Turbo S eHybrid. Yeah, pretty complicated the name. And well, we hear maybe the vents, because it's really hot outside today. But the cool thing is you can start all silently. That's always the great thing about electric vehicles, even with the PHEVs. And we also have those special gauges. At the moment we have the battery about half depleted and still have about 15 kilometers left to go. And that proves again my point. With the V6 I did the test, ended up with about 35 kilometers pure electric range, and here the weight is of course a little bit higher. Here it will be about 30 kilometers effective real electric range. And you can have different driving modes. So here at the moment in the e-power mode, I'm driving pure electric. You can see the RPM meter in the middle is just on standstill, is on 0 with those acid green accentuations. And it needs somehow fitting to the Cayenne because it's a really comfortable car, considering it's a sports SUV. And this silent ride you have is something very special. Just, you feel a little bit more light with that. And it's fun, especially when you're driving around neighborhoods and so on. You can really be silent, don't annoy anyone with the Turbo S sound. So when you're going out to the countryside, you can maybe then again really hammer it. We will soon do that. First, I want to tell you something about here the electric driving experience, because that is really belonging to this PHEV version. So probably I would use the e-power, either when doing a startup in the morning in your neighborhood or so, or maybe just to say you recharge or so, and then you say, whatever, I just use the e-power as as far as it goes, and then that's it. Interesting that when I received the message with the Apple CarPlay, it was changed in the Apple CarPlay mode. It was an interesting live experience here. So then, especially when you're going through the city here, you can be silent. Not sure if that would fit. Or here, braking and accelerating again. And in the e-power mode, it's not a big battery, but it's still somewhat spontaneous from the acceleration still. However, in the pedal, there is this point where you have a little bit of a resistance. So here, full e-power, but then when you press all the way through, then just one press on the pedal and the normal combustion engine gets on. So they've done that intentionally because they say there might be some situations where you suddenly want to do an acceleration onto the motorway or something, and then you maybe want that pedal to react in a way that the combustion engine is going on, and also have the maximum acceleration always ready. You can argue pro and con definitely for that. So here now it also stays in that, but maybe when we go from hybrid to the E mode again, here on the shifting knob, then it goes back to 0 and the RPMs are gone. So very interesting, definitely, as for that. Then we can also go to the hybrid mode. We can either do it in this middle menu or here at the steering wheel. In the hybrid mode, it can still remain electric, but just the vehicle decides for itself now and is not saying like, I want to stay in the e-power mode all the time, but when you're, for example, rolling, don't need so much acceleration, then it's staying, you know, in this E mode. And then you have the sport mode, then the combustion engine is always activated, and same also goes for the Sports Plus mode. And then you can also have this maximum acceleration. And well, there's no one behind us, no one in front of us now. Let's see, what about that? Well, we did reach 100 kilometers before the speed limited. Wow. And I could reduce the speed again. That was amazing. Wow. I think Jonas's bottle here somehow flew around. Well, the tripod, the tripod flew around because the acceleration was that harsh. Wow. And what I really felt, I mean, recently we did that here with the Cayenne Turbo without the electric boost. And this one here indeed felt different. So the acceleration is not too different, you know, it's like 3.9 versus 3.8 seconds, so a little bit in favor here for this Turbo S, but then again, this additional weight, you know, it has to stay somewhere. That's why the acceleration is not that much better than in a normal turbo right here, but it indeed feels different. It's a little bit more silent at first, and like this from the get-go, you know, you feel a little bit of this electric boost. So you first have a feeling of, oh, there's an electric something going, like more silent and more torque sets directly in. And then the whole combustion engine comes, or it's still acting, you know, already activated, yes, but you somehow feel a difference. With the normal turbo, when we did the launch control right there, that was a proper launch control, then you felt, you know, this is the pure power from this combustion engine and the growling and so on. Here you directly feel the mix, and it's indeed very interesting, I can say. So here now, countryside road, and yeah, you always have this growling from the performance exhaust. At 100 kilometers an hour, the car still keeps so stable. The air suspension is set on a stiffer tone here in the Turbo S, and you feel that sometimes, you know, especially when in sports mode, it's even stiffer. You get a good response from the road. So it is definitely one of the sportiest big SUVs out there, if not the sportiest. Yeah, you might lose some comfort if you compare it to one that has like this carpet ride experience, but when you go for this one, you want that rather sporty experience. However, I have to say, this new fabric seat layout they have here, this is the first time I'm driving it now for a longer time, and it's fantastic. Those are not only for, you know, for animal friendly reasons, way to go, but also just for the comfort. They are definitely more comfortable than any other seat I have driven in a Cayenne so far. Also because we have high temperatures now outside today, they stay cooler. You actually don't need the seat cooling then. We don't stick to those seats as would be the full animal skin spec. And they're also a little bit softer, you know, the surface is softer, so I definitely have a plus in comfort here with this seating. So far you only get this together with this sports design package, also, you know, with the carbon roof and so on. Not sure, you could ask your Porsche dealer if you can also get it, you know, in a different setup or something. Would be also interesting. Yeah, but definitely a super sporty ride we have here. Now we get onto the motorway, have some more of that. And also go to the sports mode. Wow, hard on the brakes here. Wow, those brakes are reacting pretty much now. Let's see how that, wow, those brakes are incredible, really. Just little pressing on it, you have direct deceleration, really amazing. So now we get on the motorway. Wow. I like this electric boosted acceleration somehow. It feels a little bit more futuristic, sophisticated. It's definitely less old school, yes. So the question is, what do you prefer? So both are somewhat equal in the acceleration. Yeah, if you then think about governmental benefits, more people will go for this one probably. There's in Germany this new rule that usually you have to, when you use a company car, also for private use, you have to pay 1% of the total list price per month for the private use. And if you think about, a car that costs like 100k, or maybe like this one even more towards 200k or something, then you pay half if you have a plug-in hybrid or electric vehicle. That's very interesting. Probably then more people will go for this one just for this reason. But other than that, it's really a question of philosophy. Do you want rather this old school experience with the pure combustion engine for this more roaring and without any electrification as for the drivetrain, or do you want this one here, which it somehow feels cool? I wouldn't have imagined that you feel that directly also in the sports mode, but as soon as you hit the throttle, like the very first moment, you feel that there is the electric boost, and that's also what it's intended to have. Very interesting. Now let's get on Motorway again here. You still have that sound. Of course, you hear, the roaring sound still, but it's somehow different. Very interesting. So it's such a flawless performance. I mean, what else can you expect from 680 horsepower? Of course, you also have still a lot of boost, even if you are already at speed. So here, for example, we are now cruising at about 100 kilometers an hour. We can set a cruise control as an adaptive cruise control. I can also see it in the head-up display. This new head-up display now available for all Cayenne versions since the V6 PHEV was introduced. But I have to say, the ones we are used to from BMW, Audi and Mercedes are at the moment a little bit better. I think the visualization in the head-up display is, to me, not the clearest one I've seen. Maybe it's an early production model, but I would have expected a little bit more out of it. Now, we are already at about 100, and let's see. And that's 200. Wow. Yeah, that's without a doubt a great performance, and the car keeps so silent, so stable. Great noise insulation as well. And I mean, we're still here in the very, what's that? Still here in the very heavy SUV, and you feel nothing of that, So here, lane change at high speed, it feels like a sports car. It keeps so stable, and considering it's so stable as for suspension, the suspension is not that uncomfortable. So I also like that approach. So a flawless ride here, especially on the motorway. And talking about recuperation, so when you hit the brakes or when you just let it roll, always depends on what's showing me when and how much it is charging. So the good thing here about the plug-in hybrid vehicles is that sometimes the power is not lost, So here, of course, we make some performance tests and so on, but most of the time you will not, race all day with this car, and maybe also relax a little bit with that. And then when you go downhill, for example, you can use the brakes, approach the next traffic light and so on. Then you can use the recuperation here, regenerative braking, and gain back some energy. And this can indeed make sense. We have already tested that with several plug-in hybrid vehicles, the Panamera and also the V6 hybrid. And indeed, it definitely decreases the fuel consumption even if you do not recharge the car. That's pretty interesting, and so it then can come close to a fuel consumption of an equivalent diesel variant, maybe like 1 or 2 liters more, but definitely less than the pure petrol ones. So here, as we had some performance test, we are about 25 kilowatt hours on more kilometers electric fuel consumption. Electric fuel consumption, yeah. So that's also pretty normal. It's also what other big electric vehicles have as for the consumption. You can also have the GPS in there, and yeah, the real fuel is about 15 liters on 100 kilometers. That's again when you have performance driving as we did it right now here. So what we can do here is reset everything and see how that one turns out. So I'll reset everything and then see what is the minimum consumption here with cruise control on the motorway, because that's always very interesting. If you know, people always argue like, when you buy such a vehicle, you're not interested in the environment. You say like, whatever, it's just me that counts, no one else counts. But I don't think so. Maybe there might be some customer like that, but there are also a lot of people who want to buy great cars but still want to care about the environment. For example, getting the fabric seats, Alcantara steering wheel, maybe even then the hybrid, because say, sometimes I want to have good acceleration, but I also want to be locally emission free in the city, or I want to, use some more of the energy and so on. That's why we also always give fuel consumption figures for performance vehicles. And here, when you are just at cruise control, right here, you can also go very low fuel consumption, of course, because the car is quite efficient when you don't, hammer it that much. So we stay at the moment at a little bit lower speed, and you can have some, some 8 liters or more kilometers, something like that. Engine remains on, and now I get to the e-power mode and see what about the minimum of consumption as for the electric consumption right there. So let's see right there. Wait just a little bit. At the moment the car's even charging because we go a little bit downhill. That's interesting. So now setting cruise control again. Meanwhile, we have a lot of cars where the cruise control is integrated in the steering wheel. I think that's a little bit better instead of using this separate column right here. Or what's your take on that? Here again, by the way, a very silent, great noise insulation. You see how well the car stands in the wind. Is it a difference driving the coupe and the SUV? Yeah, not really. The coupe here is set out a little bit sportier from some stuff, but it's not a huge difference. It's more about the design question, and then if you are really interested in that, and if you need the full height capacity in the rear than in the trunk. That's the question as for that. So here, minimum electric fuel consumption, as for cruise control motorway, about 20 kilowatt hours more than kilometers. So I think we've shown you here like this span we have from minimum to maximum. That's really interesting. So I want to get off the motorway here and then get back on the other side. It's also very interesting to switch around with the motorways then too. Blind spot monitor right there. It's also interesting. It flashes when something is approaching. When you hit then the turn indicator gives you an additional warning. So assistance systems working really flawless here. Great to use them too. And this car gives you for an SUV such a controlled handling experience, especially in this setup here with the sporty seats, with the Alcantara steering, with the little stiffer setup. So definitely an incredible job they have done here. Of course, you can always argue about the concept at all because it's a very heavy car. Even heavier here with the battery. Doesn't make sense to have a... Whoa. Not sure if he wants to get on the right, just in case. Sometimes we know you're on the blind spot. So you can always argue that like 680 horsepower vehicles, who needs that? But then again, there will be people who buy those vehicles, and I think then it still makes sense somehow to make those cars then as efficient as possible. And again, for a high performance vehicle, now here maximum recuperating, for a performance vehicle, I think it is actually pretty efficient and very performant at the very same time. So what at the first sight might seem like, who needs that? Is that really making any sense? Here, by the way, also the camera, interesting view to the front camera, automatically was activated because I was approaching the front car. Also well done. I mean, why not? It is a more interesting experience than with the normal turbo, definitely. And if you are, if you like technology, if you like this little bit of an extra approach, that might be something for you then. And now to our conclusion for today with the Porsche Cayenne Turbo S eHybrid. Well, on paper, at first you think, oh, you know, such a big and heavy SUV, make it even heavier with this PHEV version. Then the top trim or top sportiest version as electrified one, does that make any sense? And well, after driving it, I have to say, yes, it does somewhat. On the exterior, here the Coupe today. Very interesting, we've seen it once before. You can check out the other review where we compare also Coupe and SUV. But this one here is available both for the SUV and the Coupe. The typical sporty Porsche look. On the interior, high build quality, and especially this cool interior with this design package here today, with those fabric seats, with the Alcantara steering wheel, with the Alcantara ceiling. Very beautifully done and a good alternative to the so far overwhelming animal skin concept they had there in the Cayenne. But still, this car is very well usable, especially as the SUV. The Coupe, of course, loses something of the trunk then in the very rear, but still, you can very well use it if you prefer this design scheme. Driving-wise, wow, this was just wow, wow, wow. Such a performant SUV, it has so much power. It's still decently comfortable, although 22-inch wheels, you don't have to go for the biggest one always, but I mean, they look pretty massive. But still, the air suspension gave us decent comfort, although it's a little bit stiffer than here in this setup right there. But then this handling, it's really like a sports car handling, although it's such a heavy SUV, then with even more weight with the battery, but still such a great handling. That was really astonishing. And I really love the concept that in the neighborhood you can, you know, drive all silent, have this electric drive, can relax. It somehow fits also to this whole concept of this vehicle. And then again, maybe in countryside road, you can really let it fly. And wow, this is really a great performance sounds you had there. So you can go for a normal turbo if you like this classic approach. But here, this technology approach, I somehow like it. It was bringing a little bit more spice to the whole one. I already like the V6 hybrid. So if you ask me for the best price performance Cayenne, go for the V6 hybrid. This is the best price offering they have. However, here they also have this sport design package with the fabric seats. So I would like that too. Yeah, I mean, and Coupe or SUV doesn't really matter. That's just you know, personal preference. But here then with the top horsepower spec, you could have something of both worlds. And if you don't let it fly all the time, with this hybrid, you can actually also score some decent fuel consumption figures with the electric drive help and also with the recuperation. So what's your take on this one here? There's surely a lot to discuss here today. Please join us also next time and check out the other Cayenne episodes. We have so many different variants on the engines. Meanwhile, you can just pick the one you're interested most in. We will link those in the video description and also in the comments. Again, thank you so much for tuning in today and see you next time.